The title for my lecture today is The Interplay of Culture in the Mind and Culture on the Ground in Individual and Group Behavior. If you read the required essay for today, you will understand those concepts, and I will not be explaining them in the lecture. So if you're listening to this before you've done your reading, go back and do your reading first. In her lecture notes for this week, Dr. Christopher has shown us how cultural values are responses to problems that are common to people everywhere. In each culture, people have created and legitimized specific communal solutions as to how to deal with these problems. Further, Christopher has shown us how Hofstede's research highlights very significant patterns in the solutions that people create around the globe. My lecture addresses the struggle that people everywhere have when they try to implement their value preferences and respond to specific problems that occur in day-to-day work and life. In the required reading for this week, you have to read a 2011 case study about a financial crisis in a Phoenix Baptist church. Again, if you haven't read it, you should go back and do the reading first. This case illustrates that problem solving is usually not the mere application of values and preferences to a crisis, but rather it is more often a complex contest of wills, divergent values, and social power in a local context. Now you might ask, is this Phoenix case an exception? And my response is no, absolutely not. I've had the privilege of doing research in the Pacific Islands, in South America, in Africa, and Asia, and in every situation I've studied, there are always local factions, divergent values and preferences, and the exercise of social power by the participants to impose their will to solve the problem in their way with reference to the question in focus. As I've explained in the essay for this week, anthropologists have explored the complexity of human behavior for the last 100 years or more and have struggled to frame adequate theoretical models to describe and explain how culture and human will interplay with each other. In the first 100 years of anthropology, scholars argued over which of several theoretical alternatives provided the most powerful explanations for human behavior. Among these alternatives, you have evolution, you have diffusion, you have social structure, economic structure, worldview, symbols, conflict, and so on. More recent scholarship has recognized that all of these alternatives are a part of the complexity and chaos of human cultural life. Anthropologists and sociologists now write about systems of socio-cultural life in which all these variables play a part. Social life is indeed chaotic in that it is unpredictable. Yet variation is never random, but occurs around the value and structure preferences embraced by the participants in their respective social contexts. I find it helpful to think and talk about these issues using the metaphor of sports and social game. If we reflect upon sports like American football and basketball, we know that each sport has its carefully defined rules, its coaches and players who plan strategic plays, its officials who enforce the rules, and specific action to win the game. There's always a particular defined playing field in which the sport is acted out. A set number of players usually implement these action plans on the field or on the court for a very definite period of time, oftentimes not more than an hour or two in maximum length. As they play the game, each team strives to achieve a higher score, and at the end of the defined time period, the one who has the highest score is declared the winner. At a glance, you can see there are many parallels and yet many differences between the game of basketball and the financial crisis in the Phoenix Baptist Church. Both are clearly contests in which one group of players seeks to achieve a win for their side. However, the Baptist factions disagree about the rules and about legitimate strategies for the game they're playing. It is as if one group is using the rules for American football and the other group is using the rules for Australian rugby. They're playing on the same field, they're seeking to score with the same ball, but they disagree about what are the proper rules of play and about what constitutes a foul or legitimate action in a given situation. The result is conflict, disagreement, and a little bit of chaos. If you apply Hofstede's national cultural dimensions to this case, and I'm asking you to do that in the forum, you will find in the Baptist Church factions with different mental scripts about individualism and collectivism, and about power distance, even though the people in question are all white Americans. If you add people from different ethnic groups, African, Asian, Hispanic Americans, the mental scripts will be even more divergent. When we examine how any crisis plays out on the ground, the social game is usually chaotic because of the different mental scripts of the participants and because of their conflicting interests and goals. Who has formal authority and how do they use it? Who has the economic power and how are they using it? What are the beliefs and symbolic commitments or the theology of the participants, and how did these emerge in the crisis? Each participant has will and emotion about the issues. How do they play? Who has the spiritual maturity in this situation and who does not? Who seeks the good of the whole and who seeks the victory for their faction? Like in sports, each faction handles the crisis in time using different strategies. Who made the first move and how was it received? Who made the second move? And so on. In church crises like this Baptist case, the time frame is often open rather than limited, and the issues may drag on over months and even years. When this happens, the ministry of the church is crippled, as you can well imagine. A house divided falls. A team with serious internal conflict usually fails to achieve its team objectives. As you move on to Forum 3 and you analyze the Baptist case, think about the interplay between culture in the mind, the mental scripts, and culture on the ground, the way they use power in their relationships with each other. What do you see in the details of the case? How do Hofstede's profiles of national culture help you understand some of the subtleties in this situation? What insights can you gain from your previous work on Lingenfelter and Mayers and the basic values? What role does power play, and what kind of power exchanges occur between the factions involved? What happens to our beliefs in spiritual maturity in such a crisis? We oftentimes put them on a shelf. What can we learn from such cases about how to keep our ministries spiritually and biblically grounded? As you analyze this case, I want you to think about what you can learn about those crises, about how to keep our ministries focused on the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm looking forward to reading your reflections on the case.